Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome back. We are going to continue the journey of transformation and my specific journey around Pluto at 1 degrees Aquarius and all the things that illuminated in my life and my chart. I'm Jamie Ehrenberg with Idlewild Retreats, and this is my journey of following my intuition and becoming my truest self. So today's episode is the Descent and the Rebirth. So we have touched into 2 of the 6 phases of this Pluto in 1 degree Aquarius aspect that is also a mirror for what is transformation and what does that really look like in our lives. And the first 2 episodes got into more of Pluto and Aquarius and those basics of those archetypes and what that means for the collective. And the last episode talked about my specific journey and what that looked like in my birth chart and what that looked like in my real-time experience of the first 2 ingresses of Pluto into Aquarius. We'll cover 2 more ingresses while we're here today. The 2 pieces I want to talk about, or the 2 timings, I'm just going to name those right off the bat, was 1 degree Aquarius retrograde, which was May 23rd to July 27th of 2024. And I'm only naming this because it's chunked up into story form for me. And then the next longer transit, so it was a full 31 days, a whole month of Pluto at 1 degree Aquarius, with Pluto no longer going back into Capricorn. So it was now it's in Aquarius for good, which it is right now when I'm filming this too. And that was December 29th, 2024 to January 30th, 2025. So that's the Descent and the Rebirth. So just as a quick recap, in my own birth chart, I have the Sun and Venus at 1 degrees Aquarius. In opposition to this exact spot, I have my Mars at 1 degree Leo, and my Chiron is at 1 degree Taurus, so that's squaring this transit. And again, we're all going to experience this transit in our charts in some level. You might have specific planets being pressured one way or another by this transit, and you may only be feeling it in the house, but most likely something is going to get touched on in your chart, your own birth chart. So for me, this first descent, this first retrograde period at 1 degree Aquarius, I experienced 2 things that were pretty significant. So from the last episode, I was starting to unwind and wind down my first career that had been my entire adulthood to this point. And I was also starting to wind up my second career. And that was the biggest theme that I was really noticing, and that makes a lot of sense because my Venus and my Sun are in my 6th house of daily work and service in the world. So it's how I show up every day. And so that made a lot of sense. When we then go into this retrograde, 2 things started happening that I want to note. One is that I did the energetic clearing at Idlewild. It wasn't timed for this by any means, but as we were really feeling into what is it going to be like to hold retreats there. We have a cemetery on the property. Not all great things happened on the property, so I wanted to energetically clear this space before even thinking about having people on the property. So that happened during this time. But the other thing that happened during this time was that I had some health issues come up, which is super chironic. And now that I understand it, I've kind of teased into them in earlier episodes already about intuition. I was getting glimpses of chronic health conditions that I've always had, and I finally it was being raised to the surface enough for me to have to deal with it. So most people would say I'm one of the healthiest people that they know based on what I eat, my exercise, and my mental health and all those things. And there's so many things that can be hidden. So I had this experience over last summer, it was a year and a half ago now, where I all of a sudden started retaining water, and I literally was retaining 10 pounds of water weight from my hips down. And when it first started, I first started noticing it because I had weighed myself and then all of a sudden noticed what the scale said. I was like, oh, this is weird. Can I try all the natural remedies that I could possibly think of? And nothing was making it budge. And I ended up, because water retention and especially like that is often associated with the heart, I ended up going to start my process of having a cardiologist, and also because of some of the blood work that was showing up, I ended up going to an allergist as well because my eosinophils were coming up high, which usually is showing an allergic reaction. This, as any of you know that have ever started to unveil chronic health conditions, can really take a while. I started having that water weight right at the end of June, and I think I really didn't even have an idea of what was happening until November-ish. Like then I was able to put all the pieces together, and I had to do a lot of that. And I'm gonna say, back to the intuition and knowing ourselves the best, there were so many things that I ended up piecing together and really focused on what was happening in my body and how things were making me feel. In the end, without getting into all of it, I was unknowingly taking in too many high histamine foods that weren't causing an allergic reaction, but they were causing inflammation, especially during the heat of the summer. So those two things combined just really set it off. In particular, I believe not only the histamines, but I think that I have get a lot of inflammation from mushrooms, and I was taking supplements and I had it in my matcha and all sorts of things. And I'm not saying that to scare anybody about mushroom supplements. This is knowing what we're putting in our body and how our body's reacting to it, and really being able to track that and be aware of that. I think it's one of the best things that we can do for our health, and we often know, and none of those tests, none of the allergy tests told me I was allergic to any of these things, but it didn't mean that they weren't causing me inflammation. My allergist ended up also testing me for hereditary alpha tryptophanemia, which I did test positive for, which means that I have a sensitivity to high histamine foods and other things around me, heat, cold, all of which I've had all of my life. And now I actually had something to name and to slowly be able to do something about. I also was able to see that my lipids and my lipoprotein A, so heart-related measures, and ApoB, those were all high, which pointed to some other cardiology related things that I ended up taking those results to my cardiologist, and he had me do a calcium scan of my heart, and it turns out that I actually already have some buildup in my arteries, my 4 major arteries, which I shouldn't because of my lifestyle and my age, but I already have some of that. So this Chiron, these core wounds, these wounds that we likely are going to live with our entire lives, both of those things, my hereditary heart cholesterol issues, as well as this hereditary allergic reaction, this alpha tryptophanemia, both of those things came online and became unveiled during that first period, where I am not excited that I have both of them, but I'm so grateful that I know about them. And I feel like the more we know and can start doing something about them, the more we can actually take control of our health, or at least work with our bodies the way that they are. Yeah, so those two things. And the other thing, I also was diagnosed with scoliosis during this period. And so these really interesting health things all started coming up as this retrograde square was happening to my Chiron. It was quite interesting, and I value what was revealed so much. And in the meantime, I was continuing this death and rebirth cycle of my career and my previous career and my new career. And so those were happening all simultaneously. And the next part that I want to talk about is Pluto moving into Aquarius for good for the next 20 years, where we won't see any retrogrades back into Capricorn. So that the collective is really feeling all of this at this point. And what that ended up, how much has changed in my life collectively in this transit, but certainly already in this beginning. So at the time that we experienced December 30th to January 30th, that time frame that we were back at 1 degree Aquarius, Pluto was, I was no longer working full-time for someone else. I was just doing that in my own company. So I was birthing a lot of things, many of them which were still ego structures. It just is what it is. I don't feel any shame. I understand that my brain was trying to create a bridge from knowing to uncertainty, and it created a structure that I ended up not doing at all this year, which was the retreats. I created an entire structure and it didn't work out this year, and I think that was a beautiful lesson for me. And I think it was mostly because the timing wasn't right for a whole bunch of reasons, especially with the bigger astrological transits this year in 2025. It also wasn't, I was creating out of the need to have structure, known structure, versus being able to be okay with what was unfolding. So in this period, I wasn't being held by any other structures other than my own. It was really this incredible, when I say rebirth, I do mean it in so many ways. I've mentioned before that I am a projector in human design, and that really opens me up to being susceptible to other people's energy and being pushed by other people's energy. And my emotional center is also completely open, which makes that doubly so. And one of the things I noticed the most was this unraveling of what was everybody else's energy and me being able to start taking up that space. Not completely, it was only a month, but to start feeling my energy move me. And if you've never experienced that before, which I would say most of us don't end up feeling that, or it's rare that we feel it, it was incredible. And I was so in awe of the layers of support that I needed in order to even be able to be in that position. Spiritual support, personal support, family support, and super grateful for all of that. During this time, I also finally started doing something about those health-related issues that I had received information about during the retrograde. I started doing both chiropractic and energetic work on my scoliosis. I started really getting more focused on my heart later, just this summer really. During the last 1 degree Aquarius transit, I didn't quite get to the hereditary alpha tryptosemia, but it was a lot coming in all at once. So I was working on those two parts, my scoliosis and my heart, really taking care of that and my inflammation as much as I could. Then I also started to hear Idlewild speaking to me. We were at the property on the land during this ingress, this 1 degree transit period, and it was the first time, it was during a new moon, or it was on a new moon. I was on a hike, and it was the first time I heard the land talk to me. And that land specifically, I've been channeling land and Mother Earth separately, but the land that I am co-creating with and stewarding was able to, after that energetic clearing, start to come in to her own. I can't even tell you the amount of energy that is continuing to build since then is truly palpable. During this period, I also started working more deeply in the business. I really was able to create all of the infrastructure for supporting what it was, at least in this moment, which was offering retreats, circles, and workshops. And that felt really good. But more than anything, this just felt like a time that I needed space to be able to catch everything that was coming in. And I think I've talked about this before, but in a time when there's so much information coming in, that's what it felt like. It was like all of these downloads, all of this divine inspiration was coming through, and it was coming through so quickly, and I needed to catch it. I needed to catch it, write it down. I couldn't possibly do it all, do something with it all, but I needed to be able to catch it and hear it, and just having the space that I did and taking it easy during that time and not cluttering that time up with, a lot of travel or training or workshops or other just busyness. And I'm not saying any of that is necessarily busyness in and of its own, but I really needed that space. I think I went to the land twice during that time because I just get so much space when I'm there, and it's so clear and my energy is so clear. Gosh, it was so beautiful what was able to come in. And in this time, in this rebirth time, I also want to name that it was when I was really working on becoming and being seen for my full true self. And I knew that not everything was open yet. I realized that some more of my psychic gifts were starting to open up during this time. There were some things that were feeling like, wow, that's kind of weird, that were coming in, like when the land really started talking to me, which she did in February, and she started asking me to do things to bring people to the land, to help activate them with that like deep earth wisdom that now I understand is to really match this higher frequency, but that we're supposed to be these conduits in between. And so the higher we're going in frequency, the lower we also need to be going. It's like they say, the deeper the roots, the higher the branches. As below, so above. But she really started calling me to bring people to the land, to do this deep connection work with that kind of almost ancient primordial level of wisdom within the earth that's always been there as long as the earth has been. And now I understand, like actually just super recently during this transit, that I am getting the top end of it is being brought in, and that's how we'll start to work together again moving forward. But this spiritual awakening just got even deeper. Me starting to move from that doing to being, creating more ease and spaciousness in my life to allow for whatever the divine was bringing in to actually be able to come in. It was really, really beautiful. It was really, really beautiful. And I will get more into it in the last episode, which I will record while we're in this 1 degree transit that is happening right now as well. It feels so perfect. But being able to go through this experience of transformation, it isn't easy. It takes a while for everything to be revealed. Then it takes a while for things to integrate. And in this case with me, I was getting all of this more coming in, more being revealed every time we were going in and out of this dance, of this transit. So all in all, there were 6 different experiences, like these 6 different time frames that I had to work with this super direct working on all these different parts of me, and so grateful for them, and just acknowledging that it is a dance. It is the inspiration coming in, the information, the downloads coming in, and then trying to start integrating them, slowly integrating them, following my intuition as to what to integrate when, and not trying to do it all at once, but just doing one thing at a time. Then moving into even deeper levels of that. So once I was able to step further into this path, then there's and I am going to do a series, I know I've said this before, about being versus doing. There's so much personal unraveling and ego unraveling that has to happen with that I don't think we talk about enough. I don't think we talk about enough, and it is big. It's like this integration, that unraveling also of who am I? Who am I if I'm not doing all of these things, and getting more to the core of that. It's quite a thing too. So I'm just going to end this episode to say that, again, I would love to hear about your own transformations. If this arc is feeling like it is feeling supportive for anything you're going through right now, if you want to be witnessed in anything, I would love to witness you. And in return, I would also love for you to subscribe to the channel, to like, drop a comment below one way or another, even if it's just a few fire emojis, to say that you're here and to support the algorithm to, get this out to more people. I would really appreciate that. And I also would appreciate you sharing anything about the retreats in the future that you would like to see. Very truly, I am waiting for 2026 to get the invitations from others as a projector of what retreats people want to see and when, and we're going to experiment with that for 2026 and allowing those retreats to flow in that way. So I'd love to hear if any timing or topics are of interest to you. Sending you so much love, and I will see you again on the next episode.